My sister-in-law is planning a wedding at my house and I'm not invited, but on her wedding day, the princess is surprised to find I've changed the lock and there will be no wedding. I'm 34 years old and have been following this sub for a long time. Lately, there's something in my life that I needed an opinion on. I've read many posts about sisters-in-law to see if anyone else has gone through my situation and how they've handled it. Well, I guess my situation is unique and I need some advice about it. It's about my sister-in-law, which is why I can't discuss this with my husband. You know, family complexities. So here's the thing. My sister-in-law, 27 years old, is planning a wedding for the spring. She wants to hold it at my house. Yes, that's right. Not to brag, but I have a 4-bedroom house with a pool and a big garden. She is engaged to an Irish guy, so her family and relatives would need a place to stay when they come for the wedding. We have a pretty spacious living room and a big yard outside. She plans an outdoor wedding in the garden, followed by dinner in the living room. That's how she wants it to be. Now, the obvious question is, do I agree with this? Well, I don't know. That's why I'm here looking for advice. Let me give you some context. I've been married to my husband for 8 years. We met in college and dated for 4 or 5 years before getting married. He doesn't come from a wealthy family, but he is a hardworking and self-made man. My father-in-law worked as a day laborer, and my mother-in-law did occasional jobs. My husband has a younger sister who has been living with my in-laws. Keep in mind she is 27 years old and still doesn't work. Not only do they provide her with food and shelter, but they also cater to her extravagant demands. And when I say extravagant, I mean beyond their means. Unlike my husband, who completed his master's degree, my sister-in-law dropped out of college. Her parents didn't even insist that she finish college because she didn't need to be told anything. She is inspired by this new age influencer who says that a degree doesn't make you rich or successful. I find it strange because I was raised completely differently. Although my parents are quite wealthy, they never gave us privileges. Yes, we went to a private school, call it a luxury or whatever you want, but beyond that, my parents didn't do anything for my career. When my brother and I were in high school, Dad told us to earn a scholarship or take out a student loan. He wasn't going to pay for our college. We used to hate it and thought our dad was stingy. We studied hard and got scholarships. Now that I'm older, I realize the wisdom of their upbringing. It made us self-sufficient, especially after seeing my sister-in-law. I'm convinced of the importance of the role of parents in a person's life. When I got my first job right after college, I went crazy partying and vacationing, but Dad sat me down and showed me some good properties. I was happy that he was finally letting go of some money from his sticky hands, but that wasn't the case. He wanted me to buy the house myself. He paid the down payment. He explained the importance of having my own house, and the sooner, the better. He advised me to rent out half of it to help with the mortgage. I own this house today, which I'm glad about considering the housing prices now. I think if I hadn't bought it, I wouldn't have been able to get such a spacious property at this price. If I have to talk about my relationship with my in-laws, it's been more or less acceptable. We don't see each other that often. They live on the other side of town and I lead a very busy life. I still have a decent bond with my mother-in-law. We talk once a week, but I just can't connect with my sister-in-law. I can't, we're polar opposites. She doesn't like me because during our initial interactions, I tried to convince her to finish her education and get a job. She thinks I'm jealous of her because her parents take care of her while mine abandoned me to live on my own. The worst part is that my in-laws say they're going through financial difficulties but keep feeding their 27-year-old daughter. My husband and I offered to help her get an office job, but neither she nor my in-laws showed any interest. She's a slacker, no doubt about it, but my in-laws should have pushed her to work, though they're happy to provide for her. There are a couple of reasons why my sister-in-law wants to get married at my house. One, of course, is the space. She could have the wedding, lunch, and dinner all in one place, and even her guests could stay without needing to book a hotel. Another reason is that she can't afford to rent a venue, and if it's not my house, she'd have to settle for a courthouse wedding. She doesn't make money, and my in-laws don't have a fortune to spend on her wedding. My husband doesn't want to give an opinion on the matter, because it's my house, and he wants me to make the decision regardless of what he thinks. That's my man, and that's why I love him so much. So, my problem boils down to this. Do you think I should allow her to use my house as the venue for her wedding? Update 1. The day after tomorrow is the wedding, and today I found out I'm not invited. The funny part is that the wedding is at my house. Let me start from where I left off last time. Yes, I agreed to let her use my house for the wedding. I was definitely worried about it, but eventually, I agreed. Now I regret my decision. I'm furious, so please excuse me if I'm just venting. My sister-in-law is nothing but a woman who uses men for money in exchange for, you know what? She isn't even that pretty, and don't get me started on her lack of intelligence. But once the lights go out, most men don't care about all that. She might be good at what she offers, which is why she was able to hit the nail on the head. That's what she calls her fiancé, the nail. Not only is she superficial, but she's also a liar. I found out that her Irish fiancé is quite well off. He works as a banker, and even his family is wealthy. So, to impress them, she lied, saying my house was theirs. I knew about this lie for a while, but I didn't care because at the end of the day, it didn't affect me. When her fiancé proposed, she came to me and almost begged me to let her use my house for the wedding. As if that wasn't enough, my in-laws also came begging. They said that if I didn't agree, they might have to take out a loan to finance the wedding. I told them, why can't she and her fiancé finance it? My in-laws said that traditionally, the bride's parents pay for the wedding, and the Irish follow this tradition more strictly than we do. I don't know how true this is, so please don't judge me for it. Those aren't my words. Plus, my sister-in-law had already bragged to her fiancé and his family about the big house that could host a wedding. Her stupidity made me laugh. I said, what if I don't allow the wedding in my house? I mean, I can do that, right? Don't you think she should have asked me first before committing to this with her fiancé? My in-laws nodded and asked me to safeguard their reputation. I told them I would, but they should have done a better job raising their daughter. You see, I don't sugarcoat my words, and maybe that's why they think I'm arrogant. They don't understand that I say this for their own good. You know what happened next? They came to my house until I agreed to this. At one point I thought, it's just a matter of 2 days, let's get this over with. And yes, some people asked in the last post if she offered to pay rent. No, all of this happened 3 months ago when I made the original post. Fast forward to 2 days ago, my sister-in-law arrived with my in-laws and 2 other men. I was at work, I saw this on the camera installed inside. They have a motion sensor. I called her and asked what was going on. She said those guys were wedding planners. They were here for a site visit to plan the wedding accordingly. I asked her to be careful with my things. She assured me she would. After paying off my mortgage last year, I got rid of the tenants who occupied my 2 upstairs rooms. I took leave from work to prepare 2 rooms for them. I hired a cleaner for the task. It's a huge house to clean all by myself. Today, my sister-in-law showed up at 6 in the morning while we were still sleeping. She was leaving for her bachelorette party in the next town. She was here to see if everything was properly prepared. She was happy to see that I had prepared 2 rooms for them and rented a larger dining table for tonight's dinner. Then she walked around the house saying, okay, those 2 rooms are ready for my in-laws. Mom and Dad will take your room, and I'll take the room with the walk-in closet. Wow, I'm so excited to show them my big house with all these fancy things. I can't wait to see their amazed expressions. When I gave her the house, I was confused. I mean, where do we fit in? The rest of the conversation went like this. Sorry, I'm confused. If your parents take our room, where do we go? She answered, well, I don't know. You can go to your parents' house or maybe check into a hotel for 2 days. You both earn well, I'm sure you can afford it. To which I responded, but why do we have to move out of our own house? And with a mocking tone, she said, because to them, it's my parents' house, remember, and you can't live here. It would be very weird for a married brother and his wife to live with my parents. I felt dizzy after that conversation. How? What the hell? So you're going to make it look like this is your parents' house and you live here like a princess? I was already pretty angry. I put on a serious face and asked, so according to your fairy tale, where do we live in case your in-laws ask us? Oh, they won't. I mean, how would they? You won't be here, right? And what about our stuff, our pictures? Who would know they are your things? I'll tell them everything is mine. The only problem is the photos in your hallway. We'll have to take them down before they arrive. I sighed and asked, so even if we vacate the house to uphold your facade, we'd still see them at your wedding, right? What if they ask us then? I asked this sarcastically, but her responses left me stunned. No, there's a misunderstanding. You're not attending the wedding or the family dinner at all. I was like, what the hell? She continued, I'm not sure how this happened, but I never invited you to the wedding. Did my parents send you an invitation? I felt very stupid for talking to her. I screamed my husband's name, who was sleeping peacefully. I screamed so loud he ran out. I shouted, did you know we weren't invited to the wedding? It seems his body was awake, but his mind was still asleep. Whose wedding? Oh yes, her wedding. We're not invited. I mean, why? I said, your sister said she didn't send us an invitation, so how could we assume we were invited? Let me understand the situation. I really don't get what's happening here. It took him a few minutes and a few repetitions to understand what had just happened. He was horrified that we weren't invited to the wedding she'd have at our house. My sister-in-law said, "Well, if that bothers you so much, you can attend and probably say your wife is sick and has to skip it." I asked, what was her original reason to justify our absence? The woman had the audacity to laugh in my face and said, "Oh, you won't believe it. I told them my parents have estranged you because you're too toxic." I was like, wow, what else can I expect from you? I angrily walked into my room without saying anything. It was useless to waste time talking to her. My husband followed me and assured me it was still my decision if I wanted my consent. At this moment, I was too angry to think clearly. I need to calm down to make a rational decision. That's why I sat down to update here, thinking it might help. And it did. I feel much lighter. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give in to the princess's demands. I don't know what to do now, but I'm definitely not going to leave my house to participate in her web of lies. No matter what happens, I'll update this thread. You can count on me. Update 2. Hi guys, thanks for engaging with my posts. Yes, everyone was right in saying that the spoiled princess lives in a world of illusions. First of all, let me answer some common questions from the comments. How can my sister-in-law access my house in my absence after I agreed to let her use it for the wedding? I gave her the spare key. The front porch, living room, garden, and pool area are all covered with cameras, so I felt okay sharing the spare key. Second, how is it possible that my sister-in-law's fiancé believed her lies that the house was hers? Didn't he visit her there at some point? I'm not sure. She's been dating him for less than a year. 2 weeks before the wedding, she brought him to my house to give him a tour while I was at work. After writing that update that day, I discussed my thoughts with my husband. Although he was on my side, saying it was my decision, he was worried that if I backed out, his sister's wedding would be canceled and his parents' reputation would be ruined. I said, let's talk to your parents then. We went to their house. We told them about my sister-in-law's plan to exclude us from the wedding. Apparently, they already knew and seemed to be okay with it. My husband lost his temper and said, "Did you know she was excluding us from her wedding and you agreed?" My mother-in-law replied weakly, "We thought you both were okay with it. Neither of you asked us why you hadn't received an invitation." At this point, I questioned if we were wrong to assume we were invited to the wedding because it was my house. My husband and I looked at each other in shock. My husband yelled, "Do you realize there will be no wedding if she retracts her decision? What if we tell the truth to her in-laws?" My mother-in-law panicked and asked us not to do such a thing. My father-in-law intervened and kindly asked if it would be okay to attend the wedding if my sister-in-law sent us the invitation now. I remained silent and did not respond because I was furious. My father-in-law asked my mother-in-law to call my sister-in-law and ask her to send the invitation immediately and apologize to us. My mother-in-law hesitated to call, but my father-in-law gave her a stern look. My mother-in-law called nervously. My father-in-law told her to put the phone on speaker. My sister-in-law answered the call and scolded my mother-in-law for bothering her during her spa session. My mother-in-law said it was urgent and that my father-in-law wanted her to invite my husband and me to the wedding. She got angry and said, "There's no way I'm inviting that witch. She thinks she's too smart." My mother-in-law tried to stop her mid-conversation and whispered, "They are here with us," but the princess was too busy complaining. She said, "If she meets my in-laws, she'll outshine me. I want to look the prettiest on my wedding day. Besides, you know how she always talks about different things, jobs, careers, investments, and all that blah blah to grab everyone's attention? I don't want that at my wedding. Everyone's focus should be on me. If she's around, she'll make me look like a fool. So no, she's not allowed at my wedding," and then she hung up. I screamed back, "I make you sound stupid because you are a fool," and I stormed out of the house. When my husband got up to leave, my in-laws asked him to calm me down and said they would talk to my sister-in-law to make her apologize. Apologize, my ass. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law texted me saying I should remove our portraits from the hallway and move out of the house after supervising the preparations tomorrow. She said my fiancé will arrive at the venue with his family at 10 in the morning, so get out before that. But make sure to leave my parents there before the wedding planners are left alone. I will stay at my friend's house after the bachelorette party. I will head straight to the salon from here and arrive at the venue as a bride. Sure, Your Highness. I'm going to plan a perfect wedding for you. When we got home, it was already late in the afternoon. I called the locksmith and changed the locks of the house. Later that night, my husband called my father-in-law and told him that we would not allow the wedding at our house, so they better find another venue. He tried calling my sister-in-law, but she was busy getting drunk at her bachelorette party. My father-in-law called back in a panic, asking what he should do. My husband suggested that if he wanted to save his reputation, he should call his guests and cancel the invitation, giving any suitable reason, because there was no way the wedding was going to happen on the scheduled date and venue. The night was exciting just imagining the expressions on my sister-in-law's face when the truth came out. Around 6 in the morning on the day the wedding preparations started, the doorbell rang. It was the wedding planner. He was here to start the wedding preparations. I told him this was my house and there would be no wedding here. He was confused and said that my sister-in-law and her fiancé had made the booking for that day. I told him to call them because my house was no longer available. An hour later, my sister-in-law's fiancé came knocking on my door. I answered, and he asked if my sister-in-law was home because she wasn't answering her phone. I said, no, she isn't here because this isn't her house. He said, maybe there was some confusion here. I'm her fiancé and we have a wedding at this house today. I guess you're her sister-in-law. I saw your photos in the hallway the other day. I smiled and said, you're right, I'm her sister-in-law, but there's more truth I'm going to tell you. Let's start with the basics. This is my house, and I live here. My sister-in-law and my in-laws live across town in an apartment. By the way, congratulations on your wedding, but it's no longer happening here because I changed my mind. I don't know what happened after that. Around 9 in the morning, this princess came banging on my door. I didn't answer. She called my husband, asking what was going on, saying that I had thrown out the wedding planner. He said that our house was not available and that she should find another place for the wedding. She screamed and pounded on my door, asking us to open it. I opened the window and yelled, if you keep pounding on my door, you could end up in jail on your wedding day, if it even happens. She insulted us and called us names for ruining her life. She left after the neighbors threatened to call the police. I blocked her number, but she bombarded my husband's phone with obscene voicemails, calling him names for not defending his sister. I asked if he was upset, and he said he was upset, but she had brought it on herself. She can't assume everything will be handed to her on a silver platter. She was ungrateful and took us for granted. She told her fiancé that this was her house and planned the wedding here without even asking me for permission. On top of that, she excluded us from the wedding and called me a witch. What does she expect in return? My in-laws didn't take it well. They blame me for tarnishing their reputation. This makes me question their value system because they were clearly okay with their daughter excluding us, even though the wedding was to be held at my property. As for her wedding, it was canceled that day. My sister-in-law and my in-laws went to see the fiancé's family to ask them to wait a week so they could arrange another venue. I heard that her fiancé called them liars in front of everyone and said he was canceling the wedding and would have to reconsider the relationship. God knows what will happen now. I'm glad to be out of this drama. I have a life to live and a career to excel in. May God bless her and her lies. Update 3. Well, it's been a couple of days since the date that would have been my sister-in-law's wedding at my house, and as you know, it didn't happen here. Though it didn't happen anywhere else either, because by the end of the day, the groom decided to cancel everything after seeing the lies of his ex-fiancée. I don't blame him. We're talking about someone who can go this far with lies, so we could expect more lies in the future, if not now. Anyway, the important thing is the reaction of everyone after all the plans went down the drain. Starting with my sister-in-law, who has been crying since all this happened. Obviously, blaming me for everything, which is ridiculous, because I wasn't the one who lied to half the world. Her ex came by the house the other day and told me this, while also apologizing for everything. Though I told him he had nothing to worry about, because he had nothing to do with it. I even apologized to him, since I should have told him about this earlier. Though, to be honest, it's not like we had a relationship or had much contact before. I didn't even have his phone number or knew his name to look him up on social media, but I felt bad for him and apologized. As for my in-laws, they keep calling my husband to badmouth me, though also to badmouth him, telling him he should have done something and not just let himself be dominated by me. He's thinking of blocking them if this continues, and he doesn't answer their calls anymore because he's tired of them. But that's something between him and his parents, so I'm not getting involved. Update 4. A week has passed since my last update, and I hope the previous one would be the last because I have no more time to waste on her. Nonsense. I had already done too much for her. But she had to show up at the house and cause a scene. It was Saturday morning and I was home having breakfast when she banged on the door. I could tell it was her because the banging was accompanied by hysterical screams. She sounded possessed with the way she was shrieking, like in those horror movies. She wanted to hit me, according to what she said, because I had ruined her wedding and her relationship by being a selfish witch. My husband wasn't home because he went to play tennis with his friend, She was screaming at the top of her lungs and banging on the door while I sipped my coffee. A neighbor heard everything and called the police. He also came to my door to make sure I was okay and told my sister-in-law that the police were on their way. She finally left, but the funny part is that she ran away like a thief or something because she doesn't have a car and had come here by Uber, so she didn't have time to order another one before the police arrived. Then I opened the door and talked to my neighbor. When I finished with him, the police arrived, and I explained what had happened. Since she threatened to hit me, and my neighbor is a witness, plus the cameras, the police went to my in-laws' house to look for her. Now it's late, and my in-laws called my husband to tell him what I did and shout a bit more, but my husband hung up and blocked them. I know many will be disappointed because we don't know what happened to my sister-in-law, since my in-laws were the only ones who could tell us, but we both feel we've had enough of everyone. If she ends up in jail or not, we don't know, but at least we're done with that family.